हम इस गणेश जी का सुनाते हैं कि हम लोग के सब अपने सत्संग के सब गुरुओं के लिए है और हमारे सत्संग के लिए। अपने सत्संग
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु, वॉइस नहीं आ रही है प्रभु, आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही। जूम पे भी नहीं आ रही, यूट्यूब में भी नहीं आ रही, दोनों में नहीं आ रही।
This was on before. Okay, is it audible?
Yeah, Prabhu, yeah.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Yes, Prabhu.
The foremost point is that he is not impersonal or void. One cannot meditate on something impersonal or void. That is very difficult. The process of thinking of Krishna, however, is very easy and is factually stated herein. First of all, the Lord is a Purusha, person. We think of the person Rama and the person Krishna. And whether one thinks of Rama or Krishna, one thinks of Rama or of Krishna, what he is like is described in this verse of the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord is Kavi, that is, he knows past, present, and future, and therefore he knows everything. He's the oldest personality because he's the origin of everything. Everything is born out of him. He is also the supreme controller of the universe, and he is the maintainer and the instructor of humanity. He is smaller than the smallest. The living entity is 1/10,000th part of the tip of a hair, but the Lord is so inconceivably small that he enters into the heart of this particle. Therefore, he is called smaller than the smallest. As the supreme, he can enter into the atom and into the heart of the smallest and control him as supersoul. Although so small, he is still all pervading and is maintaining everything. By him, all these planetary systems are sustained. We often wonder how these big planets are floating in the air. It is stated here that the Supreme Lord, by his inconceivable energy, is sustaining all these big planets and the system of galaxies. The word achintya, inconceivable, is very significant in this connection. God's energy is beyond our conception, beyond our thinking jurisdiction, and is therefore called inconceivable, achintya. Who can argue this point? He pervades this material world and yet is beyond it. We cannot comprehend even this material world, which is insignificant compared to the spiritual world. So how can we comprehend what is beyond? Achintya means that which is beyond this material world, that which our argument, logic, and philosophical speculation cannot touch, that which is inconceivable. Therefore, intelligent persons avoiding useless argument and speculation should accept what is stated in scriptures like the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam, and follow the principles they set down. This will lead one to understanding. Adityavaranam saparastat. Srila Prabhupada explains how the Supreme Lord how to think about the Supreme Lord. How about this explaining here? That yes, in this verse, we are learning how to think about the Supreme Lord. How to think about the Supreme Lord. We are learning in this particular verse. Kavi Puranam. The Supreme Lord is the knower of past, present, and future. Kavi Puranam. He is the original person, the oldest personality. We can clearly see, actually, as a living entity, we can clearly see that this entire setting of the material world is such that we are a complete misfit here. We are a complete misfit here. Insecurity, uncertainty is the poison which kills, or which has been which kills a person for for all times to come. Insecurity and uncertainty, these are poisons which disflavor every flavor. So person cannot be peaceful. A person cannot be peaceful in any setting because of this insecurity and uncertainty. Because it poisons the flavor. The person may be sitting in a marriage ceremony, but he may be wondering how long it will last. There is insecurity there. A person cannot just be happy anytime. At no stage person can be satisfied. Why? Because one knows that okay, the position which I have got may not last for long. It may not last for long. So this is insecurity actually, and this insecurity leads to uncertainty, and therefore a person is always in anxiety. Oh, whether this will remain or not. This position, this stature will remain or not. So the very fabric of life is spoiled by this drive of insecurity and uncertainty. That's why in the material world we are a complete misfit. So misfit situation proves that we don't belong to this material world. And here it has been explained, and Prabhupada is highlighting on this aspect, that we are a misfit in this material world, but we are a complete absolute fit with the Supreme Lord. The living entity is a absolute fit with the Supreme Lord. How? Just by connecting to Supreme Lord, there is no insecurity and uncertainty. Because the Lord is Kavim Puranam. The Lord is the knower of the past, present, and future. So, because the Lord is the knower of the past, present, and future, there is no insecurity. There is no uncertainty. Just by connecting to the Supreme Lord. So, therefore, a devotee becomes fearless. Abhayam is the first benediction or endowment, first endowment of the Supreme Lord is Abhayam. Ajahure man re nandanandan Abhaya charanara binda. Abhayam is the first endowment of the mercy of taking shelter. Of the mercy of the Supreme Lord when one takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Abhayam. So there is no fear because the devotee understands the future is very certain for me. What is the future? Today I am serving and I will continue serving for eternity. Mama janmani janmani shware bhavatad bhakti rahetu ki tvai. Nothing can stop my my service to the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is going to ensure that devotee is always certain. So there is full certainty. There is no insecurity. हमारा पालना भार एक होना तुम्हारा. To maintain me, O Lord, is now your responsibility because I am a sold out servant of yours. So to maintain me is your responsibility. And that is why we see that how the living entity is a complete fit with the Supreme Lord. And therefore, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is telling, Bahu dukha paye achi, swatantra jiva, dukha dure gelo, o padavara. It is my choosing. Catch hold of your lotus feet. All my miseries have got evaporated. The original person is the oldest person. Govind, Adi Purusham. He is the oldest person. And because he is the oldest person, the Supreme Lord is ever existing. Explain that. So, creation, maintenance, annihilation. The Supreme Lord is beyond it. And therefore, Maharaj Gajendra is praying to the Supreme Lord. Maharaj Gajendra is saying, Oh Lord, I take shelter of your lotus feet. Why? Because you are the original person. Why? Because I am seeing the universe is created, it's maintained, it is destroyed. You know? But before the universe is created and after it is destroyed, there is all darkness all around. You know? The universe is, the whole cosmic creation is just like all darkness all around. But you are you are the source of all the light. From you everything is coming. I am seeing that okay, there is creation, there is maintenance, there is annihilation. Even after everything is destroyed, oh Lord, you remain. Therefore, I want to take shelter of you. Not the creation, not the power, the position. Because it is going to be destroyed in some time. Because you are the original person, the Vastava Vastu. I take shelter of you. Further, it is described here. The Lord is the controller, smaller than the smallest, maintainer of everything, and achintya, beyond material conception. So, because Krishna's greatness, Prabhupada explains Krishna's greatness is not one-sided. His greatness is all-sided, and because it is all-sided, Krishna's greatness is all-sided. He is greater than the greatest, he is smaller than the smallest. And because the Lord's nature is greatness is all-sided, a devotee should rest assured that one can be completely satisfied only by the Supreme Lord. So because the Lord greatness is both sided, all sided, and can be completely satisfied. So there are some people, now if you see, there's some people they get overburdened simply by doing the major things. The finer aspects they are never able to look into. It's like in parenting. Sometimes the entire time and energy of the parent simply goes in getting money and trying to arrange a household, fooding and schooling for the children. And that saps away all their time and energy. When they by the time they come back, they're practically finished, dead. So major blocks they're taking care of. They're taking care of the fooding, the clothing, the accommodation, the schooling, the tuition of the children. But is that satisfying to the child? Not at all. Why? Because they're no, they're not available for the child. So now that's a fine thing, but they're not available for that. Why? Because each one of us have limitations. All their life energy is sapped into simply taking care and not arranging for accommodation, fooding, clothing, shelter, schooling, tuition. They are not available for the child. So it's not satisfying to the child. Child is not at all satisfied. So fine details they are not available. The small things they are not available. They're only doing big things. The small things not available. But it is the small things which one is the child is feeling empty and hankering about. But there are other kind of parents also. They're fully available for the child. Uh, they're fully available for the child. Why? Because they're not doing any job. So they're fully available for the child. But whole day they're sitting in the home only, because there's nothing else to do. They're fully available for the child. So every small detail they can talk, they can be with the child, like that. But then because there is no money, uh, uh, yeah, so no proper schooling, no tuition, no no proper fooding, because the husband is not doing anything. He's not doing, this fellow is not doing anything, sitting in the home throughout. So that so the children of such parents, and I mean such a person, are they happy? They are not at all happy also. They'll say, what is this? What can we say to the world who what your father is doing? What does your father do? He sits in the home. So so he just sits in the home. So then that is also not very satisfying. That's not also not very satisfying. So now, as far as the living entity is concerned, we just cannot. One thing we take care of. Other thing is left unserviced. That is our limitation. For Krishna, when we say that okay, Krishna is all-sided, Krishna's greatness is all-sided. That means Krishna doesn't have any limitation. He can take care of details also, and he can take care of the major blocks also. And that's why the complete maintainer. Lord Krishna likes to maintain. Therefore, when it comes to Lord Krishna likes to maintain, and that is very hope giving for us. Because Lord Krishna, now you see, it is now out of these three departments, it is the maintenance department, the Lord is not outsourced. Creation and destruction are both outsourced. And maintenance, Lord personally is overseeing. That means Krishna likes to maintain, and that is hope giving for us. Because when Krishna maintains, Krishna can maintain, at the macro and the micro level, both. So one will be completely satisfied. Had the maintenance been outsourced to demigods, it would not have been completely satisfying, because every living entity has limitations. It is only Krishna who is beyond all limitation. Therefore, is the complete maintainer, and that is the hope for us. The hope and scope is Krishna is personally overseeing maintenance, and that is why a devotee should not be worried at all. What will happen to me? How will I survive? Krishna is personally overseeing maintenance. He is not outsourced it. So what will happen? We will get whatever is needed for us to thrive and strive, Is it not? Nothing else. What else is going to happen? Because Krishna is involved. And that's why devotees need not be fearful. All we should aim for is how to increase our dedication and surrender to the Supreme God. Now the Supreme Lord is inconceivable. Inconceivable. So this material world is a deadlock situation. This material world is a checkmate deadlock situation. Krishna opens up dimensions. Krishna opens up dimensions actually. So that is why the Lord's move conception beyond the limits of our logic, our understanding, and so on. So the Lord opens up dimensions, no? And that is what is being explained. The Supreme Lord is inconceivable. No? His powers are so great. So everything may be appear to be falling and failing, but the Supreme Lord, everything appears to be falling and failing. But then the Supreme Lord, although everything appears to be falling and failing, out of nowhere and out of the Supreme Lord's grace comes in one's life and changes everything. Inconceivable. So therefore we can see in this material world, the living entity cannot actually fit with anybody and anything in any situation. The living entity is only a perfect fit with the Supreme Lord. And that is why Srila Prabhupada is saying that one should meditate on all these aspects. You know? The primemost being that the Lord is a person. So there can be some relationship. There can be some sense of belonging. You know? Relationship rivets the sense of belonging. Let's read the next verse then. Prayanakale manasachalena bhaktya yukta yoga balena chaiva Pruvor madhye pranam avesha samya satam param purusham upayati divyam. One who, at the time of death, fixes his life air between the eyebrows, and by the strength of yoga, with an undeviating mind, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this verse, it is clearly stated that at the time of death, the mind must be fixed in devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For those practiced in yoga, it is recommended that they raise the life force between the eyebrows to the Agna Chakra. The practice of Shat Chakra Yoga involving meditation on the 6 chakras is suggested here. A pure devotee does not practice such yoga, but because he is always engaged in Krishna consciousness, at death he can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his grace. This is explained in verse 14. The particular use of the word yoga balena is significant in this verse because without the practice of yoga, whether Shat Chakra Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, one cannot come to this transcendental state of being at the time of death. One cannot suddenly remember the Supreme Lord at death. One must have practiced some yoga system, especially the system of Bhakti Yoga. Since one's mind at death is very disturbed, one should practice transcendence through yoga during one's life. So the quality of one's life and activities is tested at the time of death. So the test is whether one can remember the Supreme Lord or not. Antakale Jama. Smaran Muktva Kalevaram. Whether one can remember the Supreme Lord at the time of death, that is a deciding factor which decides the quality of one's life and activities. If one cannot remember the Supreme Lord at the time of death, all one's activities are useless. All one's activities are useless. So therefore, it is said, bhajan kare, sadhan kare, martya janale hoy. Bhajan kare, sadhan kare, martya janale hoy. So the quality of bhajan and sadhan which one is doing, the efficacy of the bhajan and sadhan which one is doing is tested at the time of death. Bhajan kare, sadhan kare, martya janale hoy. So whether one can remember Krishna or not, that is the point. Whether one can remember Krishna. Whether one can remember Krishna or not at the time of death. That is the goal. And all one's activities should be so tuned to bring about this particular objective. And Srila Prabhupada is very specifically explaining in the purport that remembering Krishna at the time of death is not a joke. Now, remembering Krishna at the time of death is no easy thing. Rather, it is one of the most difficult things. So, one of the most difficult things. Why? Because the moment of death is accompanied by great amount of disturbance. So we will see that, see, if we try to see, the disturbance is actually speaking, the disturbance is a constant characteristic throughout one's life. A child's life also, one is disturbed because one is ignorant, therefore disturbed. No, because the child is ignorant, therefore the child is disturbed. So the child doesn't really know who is acting, how they are acting, who is friend, who is enemy. So that creates a lot of disturbance because one doesn't even know anything, what's happening, how people are behaving. The child doesn't know. So many times you say children are innocent, you can easily catch a child. Huh? But the child really doesn't know because not knowing is not much aware of what's happening around and who is going to react in what way. So there is disturbance. In youth, one is disturbed because senses are most powerful. And therefore, the senses create the agitation to such an extent that one is disturbed. So in youth also one is very disturbed because the senses create that agitation. And then we see now the senses are so strong, there is so much of agitation. Therefore, one is disturbed. Because one thinks that one has so much power, the body senses are so strong. So, does the situation improve as one grows old? Not at all. Not at all. So, as one grows old, rather the disturbance goes on increasing. This disturbance goes on increasing. Why? Because the power of the body starts diminishing. The strength of the body is diminishing, and the mind is very much related or connected to the body. The strength of the body is diminishing, the strength of the mind, the sturdiness or the steady strength of the mind is also diminishing, which means what? The strength of the mind is diminishing, that one that means one is going to get the restlessness is going to increase very strongly. The sturdiness is lost. So one becomes weak not only physically, not only physiologically, but one becomes very weak mentally also. That means any agitation one cannot handle. So therefore, it is easy to control the senses in one sense in the youth, because the mental strength is also very strong. But in the old age, uh, mental strength is very weak also. So the mental strength is very weak also. So therefore, one is bound to be affected the most. So many times one has sensory power, any amount of criticism, insult, one may not be affected, one may just take it. But the same person becomes old, one becomes more prone to be affected. So therefore, with age, the disturbance is going to increase and increase and increase. And there is increase of helplessness. So that means that the practice is going to become, remembering Krishna is going to become more and more and more difficult. That is it. And at the time of death, the disturbance is maximum. Yeah, disturbance is maximum. So we can see as the entire lifespan progresses, the disturbance goes on increasing. We also know that as life goes on increasing, the amount of attachments go on increasing. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj says, Kaumaram acharet pragyo. That if one takes devotional service at an early age, it will come to one's benefit. Why? Because the later one goes, then so many attachments are there to impede the speed of progress in this. And the attachments are going to increase, the disturbance is going to increase. How will one remember Krishna? Unless one has very intensely practiced Krishna consciousness, one will not be able to continue. This is the reason why Kulashekar Maharaj is praying. Kapavata pittam kantavarodana vidho smaranam kutaste. Krishna tvadiya pada pankaja panjarantam adyeva me vishate manasa raja tana prayana kavaye kapavata pittam kantavarodana vidho smaranam kutaste. Kulashekar Maharaj is praying fervently to the Supreme Lord. And O Lord, the swan of my mind has got fixed and entangled in your lotus feet. And thus I am able to remember you at this time by your mercy, such a great blessing upon. I wish and my desire is that let me leave my body at this very moment while I am remembering your lotus feet, while the swan of my mind is completely entangled in the locks in your lotus feet, not to get out. Let me leave my body at this very time. Don't just drag me to the old age. Because in old age, kapha, vata, pitta, all of them are exploding like dormant volcanoes and are becoming active. How will I be able to remember you then or not? Now I am able to remember you. Let me now die itself. Or let me die now itself, remembering you. Kantavarodana vidho smaranam kutaste. So therefore, a very important principle which we should understand is, if we do not practice Krishna consciousness intensely now, we will never be able to. The situations are going to become more and more tough. The weather is going to become more and more rough. In time, how is the process of Krishna consciousness going to work out? If it does not work out today, or if we do not work it out today, how are we going to work it out in a much tougher setting? So that is the point. It is like, say for example, it is easiest to practice Krishna consciousness in student life. Working life more difficult. Therefore, we see that even devotees who are practicing in student life, they are not able to continue with the same fervor in working life. It becomes more difficult after marriage. It becomes even more difficult as age progresses. And the other factor also we know that with the passage of time, Kali Yuga is also progressing. So the degradation is also advancing. It is going to become tougher and tougher and tougher. It is going to become tougher and tougher and tougher. You know, the old age is like that. That's why Srila Haridas Thakur, he was practicing not 16, he was practicing 192 rounds. That momentum he wanted to gather. And therefore, in old age, he was not able to chant, he was feeling so sorry. And therefore, he's telling Mahaprabhu, oh Lord, let me leave my body because I'm not able. Mahaprabhu is telling, you don't need your Namacharya. You don't need, that regulation of 192 rounds. Sri Haridas Thakur was not, ready to leave that momentum. So you see the point. The Sanatan Goswami used to do 42 kilometers parikrama every day. The old age not able to do that. He is feeling, what is the use of my life? The time of death is going to be very tough for everyone. Prabhupada himself showed by his own example. Prabhupada is showing that don't think this will not happen to you. And therefore one needs a very fiery momentum. That is why it is said that that when we have opportunity, one should enhance or increase the momentum, because the impedance is going to increase in due course of time. And that is why Prabhupada is saying that remembering Krishna at the time of death is not a joke. And now if whole our life we are serious about it and intense about it, then by the grace of Krishna and the Acharya's blessings, it may become a possibility. Otherwise, material attachment is very, very strong. Let's read further. Yadaksharam vedavido vadanti vishanti yadyatato yatayo vitaraga yadichanto brahmacharyam charanti tatte padam sangrahena pravakshe. Persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkar, and who are great sages in the renounced order, enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. Now, Shri Krishna has recommended to Arjuna the practice of Shat Chakra Yoga, in which one places the air of life between the eyebrows, taking it for granted that Arjuna might not know how to practice the Shat Chakra Yoga. The Lord explains the process in the following verses. The Lord says that Brahman, although one without a second, has various manifestations and features. especially for the impersonalists. The Akshara or the Omkar, the syllable Om, is identical with Brahman. Krishna here explains the impersonal Brahman, into which the renounced order of sages enter. In the Vedic system of knowledge, students from the very beginning are taught to vibrate Om and learn the ultimate impersonal Brahman, learn off the ultimate impersonal Brahman by living with a spiritual master in complete celibacy. In this way, they realize two of Brahman features. This practice is very essential for the student's advancement in spiritual life. But at the moment, such brahmachari, unmarried, celibate life is not at all possible. The social construction of the world has changed so much that there is no possibility of one's practicing celibacy from the beginning of student life. Throughout the world, there are many institutions for different departments of knowledge. But there is no recognized institution where students can be educated in the brahmachari principles. Unless one practices celibacy, advancement in spiritual life is very difficult. Therefore, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has announced, according to the scriptural injunctions, for this age of Kali, that in this age no process of realizing the Supreme is possible except the chanting of the holy names of Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Process of bhakti is simultaneously very easy also and very difficult also. Very easy because the process of bhakti only means to remain connected to the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada is saying, just by chanting Hare Krishna, one can go back to Godhead. Tatam prasangat mama virya samvido vanti karna rasayana kata. So just by hearing and chanting and sharing the glories, the holy name and the holy glories of the Lord, one can go back to Godhead. It is such an easy process. Now where lies the difficulty then? How is it difficult or why it is difficult? Where does the difficulty creep in? So if one simply remains connected to Krishna, the process is very easy. But the problem is the living entity has a great propensity to get disconnected from Krishna and land up into the domains of Maya, the material sense gratification. So these domains are very strong also. Prabhupada always quotes that one should not take Maya cheaply. Why? Because Mama Maya Durutyaya. Very, very powerful. Prabhupada says Maya is almost as powerful as Krishna. So yes, if one remains connected to Krishna, then everything will be taken care of. One will be purified no matter how much anarthas. One will be uh, making one's way in a royal style back to Godhead. But owing to this propensity of getting disconnected from Krishna and falling trapped to Maya, in that sense, that imposes a great boulder, an obstacle on the path of the living in. Krishna consciousness is an easy process because even if one does not have the spiritual strength, one can always borrow spiritual strength from the devotees of the Lord. If one just holds on to the devotees, one may individually not have the spiritual strength, but by the power of the borrowed spiritual strength, and which simply happens by connecting to the devotees of the Lord, then one can overcome any obstacle. So, what easy process? Now, what more easy process can we expect? Even if we don't have realizations, we can take realizations from the devotees. Even if we don't have clarity, we can take clarity from the devotees. Even if we don't have strength, we can that strength can be conducted if we connect to the devotees. Immediately there is connection. So it's an easy process. Even if we don't have the capacity ourselves, we can connect to the association, the sangha, and all the strength, the clarity, the empowerment, everything is coming. Now, what is the difficulty then? The difficulty is there is a tendency to run away from the devotees. There is a tendency to disconnect from the devotees. There lies the difficulty. So, therefore, bhakti requires seriousness. And that seriousness is not strength. Strength is another thing. Strength can come by the blessings of the Vaishnavas. But seriousness translates into alertness and let me not connect to the material avenues. Let me always remain connected to the devotees of the Lord, not the material avenues. Because the more we connect to material avenues, the more we connect to the material avenues, the more we connect to the material avenues, the more difficult the process becomes. One may have conditionings, but one is connected to Krishna, those conditionings are purified. But one connects back to sense gratification, and that is what can add difficulty to the whole process. So therefore we see, simply by being busy in the mission of the Lord, can give one the strength to stand on the grounds of celibacy. Celibacy's example is given here. But a person who is not strongly connected to Krishna, for such a person, maintaining celibacy will be like climbing Mount Everest. It's impossible. So, by the power of the strength of Krishna and the devotees of the Lord, in the toughest of the things become very, very easy, easily installed. But when there is when there is laxity or lapse in connection to the Supreme Lord and the devotees, then it becomes like a Mount Everest. So therefore, one has to remain dedicated. Therefore, the practice of Krishna consciousness should be on an intense note, because only by the power of Krishna consciousness one can exhibit all the needed qualities like celibacy. Otherwise, very difficult. And therefore, we see bhakti simultaneously very easy, very difficult. Now, if we hold on to the connection, it is very easy. But if we remove the connection to the Supreme Lord and the devotees, it becomes very, very difficult. One fabric becomes very, very difficult. That's a point which we can. Understand. read further. सर्वद्वारणे संयम्य मनोहृदि निरुध्य च मूर्धनि अधयात्मनः प्राणम् अस्थितो योगधारणम्. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all the sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. At the top of the head, one establishes himself in yoga. To practice yoga suggested here, one first has to close the doors of all sense enjoyment. This practice is called as pratyahara, withdrawing the senses from the sense objects. The sense organs for acquiring knowledge, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch, should be fully controlled and should not be allowed to engage in sense gratification. In this way, the mind focuses on the supersoul in the heart, and the life force is raised to the top of the head. In the sixth chapter, this process is described in detail. But as mentioned before, this practice is not practical in this age. The best process is Krishna consciousness. If one is able to fix his mind on Krishna in devotional service, it is very easy for him to remain in an undisturbed transcendental state or samadhi. The Prabhupada is saying if one is able to fix his mind on Krishna in devotional service, it is very easy for him to remain in undisturbed transcendental trance or in samadhi. Text 13. Om iti ekaksharam brahma व्यवहारन् मामनुस्मरन् यः प्रयाति त्वजन् देहं स याति परमां गतिम्. After being situated in this yoga practice, vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. It is clearly stated that Om, Brahman, and Lord Krishna are not different. The impersonal sound of Krishna is Om. The sound Hare Krishna contains Om. The chanting of Hare Krishna mantra is clearly recommended for this age. So if one wants to quit his body at the end of life chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, he certainly reaches one of the spiritual planets according to the modes of his practice. The devotees of Krishna enter the Krishna planet Goloka Vrindavan. For the personalists, there are also innumerable other planets known as Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky, whereas the impersonalists remain in the Brahma Jyoti. So we can see this transcendental sound vibration is like a vehicle. Transcendental sound of Om takes one to the Brahma Jyoti, whereas the Hare Krishna takes one to the Krishna planet being explained. It is like a vehicle. The chanting of the mantra. It probably explains that each one of our, each one of the devotees should design their spiritual life in such a way, or should design their plan their life in such a way that one is always engaged in hearing and chanting. So whatever we reinforce is what will go on. That is the point. Therefore, in the present tense, there should be intensity of practice. Sometimes devotees feel, okay, let me settle down professionally. The problem of reinforcing a professional mindset, the problem in that is it may lead to such an intoxicated momentum that it won't ever stop. Because whatever we reinforce is what will grow, like that. That is why a devotee does never wants to bargain or put his one's spiritual practice at stake by lowering it or diluting it for any reason whatsoever in the entire creation. For any reason, because for any reason whatsoever in the entire creation, one lowers it. Let's read further. This takes 14. Ananyacheta satatam यो मां स्मरति नित्यसः तस्याहं सुलभं पार्थ नित्ययुक्तस्य योगिनः. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. This verse especially describes the final destination attained by unalloyed devotees who serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Bhakti Yoga. Previous verses have mentioned 4 different kinds of devotees: the distressed, the inquisitive, those who seek material gain, and the speculative philosophers. Different processes of liberation have been described also. The karma, the jnana, the hatha yoga. The principles of these yoga systems have some bhakti added, but this verse particularly mentions pure bhakti yoga without any mixture of jnana, karma, or hatha, as indicated by the word ananya chetaha. In pure bhakti yoga, the devotee desires nothing but Krishna. A pure devotee does not desire promotion to the heavenly planets, nor does he seek anyone oneness with the Brahmajyoti, nor salvation. Or liberation from material entanglement. A pure devotee does not desire anything. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, the pure devotee is called Nishkam, which means he has no desire for self-interest. Perfect peace belongs to him alone, not to them who strive for personal gain. Whereas a Jnana Yogi, Karma Yogi, or Hatha Yogi has his own selfish interests. A perfect devotee has no desire other than to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Lord says that for anyone who is unflinchingly devoted to Him, He is easily obtained. A pure devotee always engages in devotional service to Krishna in one of his various personal features. Krishna has various plenary expansions and incarnations such as Ram and Narsimha, and a devotee can choose to fix his mind in loving service to any of these transcendental forms of the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee meets with none of the problems that plague the practitioners of other yogas. Bhakti yoga is very simple and pure and easy to perform. One can simply begin chanting. One can begin simply by chanting Hare Krishna. The Lord is merciful to all. But as we have already explained, He is especially inclined towards those who always serve Him without deviation. The Lord helps such devotees in various ways, as said in the Vedas Katha Upanishad. Yame vaisavritanutritena labhyas asevatmavritam vivrunute tanum swat. The one who is fully surrendered and engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord can understand the Supreme Lord as He is. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 10:10, Dadami buddhi yogam tam. The Lord gives such a devotee sufficient intelligence so that ultimately the devotee can attain Him in a spiritual kingdom. The special qualification of the pure devotee is that he is always thinking of Krishna without deviation and without considering the time or place. There should be no impediments. He should be able to carry out his service anywhere and at any time. Some say that the devotee should remain in holy places like Vrindavan or some holy town where the Lord lived, but a pure devotee can live anywhere and create the atmosphere of Vrindavan by his devotional service. It was Sri Advaita who told Lord Chaitanya, wherever you are, O Lord, there is Vrindavan. As indicated by the words Satatam and Nitya Saha, which means always and regularly, or every day, a pure devotee constantly remembers Krishna and meditates upon him. These are qualifications of the pure devotee for whom the Lord is most easily attainable. Bhakti Yoga is a system that the Gita recommends above all others. Generally, the Bhakti yogis are engaged in 5 different ways. Shanta Bhakta, engaged in devotional service and neutrality. Dasya Bhakta, engaged in devotional service as a servant. Sakhya, engaged as a friend. Vatsalya, engaged as a parent. And Madhurya Bhakta, engaged as a conjugal lover of the Supreme Lord. In any of these verses, the pure devotee is always constantly engaged. In any of these ways, the pure devotee is always constantly engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord. And so for him, the Lord is easily attained. A pure devotee cannot forget the Supreme Lord for a moment. And similarly, the Supreme Lord cannot forget his pure devotee for a moment. This is the great blessing of the Krishna consciousness process of chanting the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada is saying the process of bhakti is easy to perform. Now, one understands that, okay, the right momentum in bhakti is actually getting the right momentum in bhakti is a great rare fortune. Because one can only get this momentum from the devotees of the Lord and the blessings of the devotees of the Lord. So otherwise, it's very difficult to get this momentum. So having got that momentum, one is in a very fortunate position. One has got this momentum. So having obtained the momentum, we should be extra and super careful not to lose that momentum or not to slow down that momentum, because momentum comes after great mercy. It's a rare fortune. Similarly, we see any opportunity to serve in the mission of the Lord. It is a great blessing, rare and great blessing. And therefore, one should be very grateful and committed. So when we get the mercy, there is momentum. One has to upkeep the momentum. Because the momentum one gets very rarely. The service in the mission one gets very rarely. Mission of the Lord will go on. If one continues the momentum, one will be, it will be easy to attain Krishna. It will be easy to attain Krishna. Read further. Mamapetya punarjanma dukkalayam shashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramam gatim. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. Since this temporary material world is full of the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death, naturally, he who achieves the highest perfection and attains the supreme planet Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan, does not wish to return. The supreme planet is described in the Vedic literature as Avyakta, Akshara, Paramagati. In other words, planet which is beyond our material vision, and it is inexplicable. But it is the highest goal, the destination of all Mahatmas. The Mahatmas receive transcendental messages from the realized devotees and thus gradually develop devotional service in Krishna consciousness and become so absorbed in the transcendental service that they no longer desire elevation to any of the material planets, nor do they even want to be transferred to any spiritual planet. They only want Krishna and Krishna's association and nothing else. That is the highest perfection of life. This vision specifically mentioned the pure personalist devotees of the Lord Krishna. These devotees in Krishna consciousness achieve the highest perfection of life. In other words, they are supreme souls. In other words, they are the supreme souls. Lord Krishna has already explained that because Krishna consciousness is an eternal bank account, this struggle to get out of the material pangs is a one-time struggle. The moment one is situated in devotional service, one will never be allured by these temporary waves of mental energy. Because Krishna consciousness is an eternal bank. Therefore, one doesn't have to take it up again and again. One time and finish. And that is why this struggle is a very worthy struggle. The nature of spiritual momentum is that it can bring about or bring us to such a state where one is no more hankering for material sense objects. So this is a very worthy struggle because this one struggle will ensure that we will no longer struggle in future. Not just at the time of death, but even during the practicing years, we will see. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Maharaj explains that now even at the level of Nishtha, one's bhakti grows to such an extent that that now further, till the platform Nishtha is the uphill climb, and further from Nishtha is the downhill. Very easily one can go. Simply by the momentum one can go. So this initial struggle is a worthy struggle, and that should be undertaken with great spirit and determination. Obviously, that cannot be undertaken independently and whimsically. It has to be undertaken with complete guidance. With great determination. That struggle has to be undertaken. So that's why here it's just like tuning or fine tuning or focusing a laser may take time. No. But once it is tuned, great output is going to come. Similarly, owing to the distractions and conditionings and anarthas we have, the absorption in Krishna consciousness may take some time, a few years of intense practice. But once that momentum comes, then we just have to maintain that, which is going to be easier. And one need not, one will not glide down to this temporary material world. So the temporary pleasures of this material world no longer appeal once one struggles to grow the momentum and then keep up the momentum, the intense momentum of spiritual life. Let's stop here for today. We'll continue the Lord's prescriptions of attaining the Supreme, text 16 to 22 in the next class. Yes, question. Yes. Yes. So if one is in Maya, is he going to take time to come out or immediately he can come out? How is it? Everything is in our hands. Everything is in our hands. Everything is in our hands. Spiritual advancement is completely in the hands of the practitioner. The attitude of the practitioner decides the pace of the spiritual life. So one is in Maya, how much time one will take to get out? One may not get out in millions of lives also. But if one wants, one can get out in one moment. Not by one's own power, but by taking shelter of the Lord. So getting strength, it's not that the Lord's promises every time, the Lord's promises what? That association guidance, Lord is saying, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Lantam. I'm going to give you intelligence. I'm going to show the way. You just need to walk. So if you so want to walk, Lord is going to send pure devotees every generation. The great devotees everywhere, all times they are going to come. This is Lord's promise. The question is whether we want to connect to them and gain a strength from them and then fight Maya. That's the point. That is the point. So, by the power of the spiritual momentum, one can actually, the spiritual momentum comes when we connect to the great souls and their mission. So we start getting that spiritual momentum. That momentum uproots all conditionings, actually. It can work out immediately. But we give up that momentum, finished. Yeah. But we continue that momentum slowly, slowly, one will develop that much strength that one will be no longer allured by this material energy, and all one's vasanas and conditionings will get washed off in due course of time. One doesn't have to worry how much it is and how deep it is. One just has to worry about the mission of the Lord, and one remains absorbed in hearing, chanting, and spreading the glories of the Supreme Lord. In due course of time, everything will be washed up. But if we get disconnected, that will be very determined. It's our choice. It's our choice. If we want, we can get done with it immediately by connecting ourselves, by committing ourselves to the devotees and to the mission of the Lord. And one who doesn't do that, oh, then it drags on. It can drag on for Nityabadha, can drag on for eternity also. That's the point. Yeah, so material world always gives a checkmate situation, a deadlock situation. But Krishna consciousness creates the hope and scope always. So Krishna consciousness is adding a new dimension to one's life, So it's a new dimension. Arjuna is crying, my relatives are dying. Lord Krishna is opening up a new dimension. They are soul, they are not dying. So why are you crying? You'll get another body. What is the problem? You focus on dharma, no? That's what the Lord is saying. So Krishna consciousness always opens a new dimension. Sometimes people understand, okay, I'm not born in very well-to-do parents. I did not get an education. What can I do? One can still come and join the temple, and do some service. There's so many devotees. They came to the temple and then they learnt English. Yeah. Brajosi Prabhu was not knowing English also. He was the first preacher here in Kharagpur. He was preaching to IITians. He didn't know English before. When he joined the temple. But by hearing Randan Maharaj lectures, proper lectures, he became an English preacher. Like that. So Krishna consciousness opens up opportunities and possibilities like that. It's a dimension. It opens up a dimension like that. So we think that okay, with the body everything is finished, but no, the bhakti is teaching us that this body will be finished, not we. Therefore, even while we are in this body, we should take back or our dependence on the body, so that when the body is about to dwindle, we are prepared. Anyways, we don't need it. Like that. So therefore, Krishna consciousness opens up dimensions. Like that. Krishna consciousness opens up dimensions. That is the point. So only because of attachments we experience deadlock and entanglements. But Krishna consciousness, the devotees can show us the world beyond the attachments, beyond the entanglements, and therefore in any situation one can practice Krishna consciousness. And devotees said, "Oh, Prabhupada, the devotees are crying." They said, "Prabhupada, these people have put us in jail. What to do?" Prabhupada said, "Whatever I have taught you to do, you do in jail. No, what is the problem? Okay, they have put you in jail. So you chant Hare Krishna there also. Have Bhagavatam class, chant Hare Krishna, have Sankirtan. So devotees are doing that. Devotees are doing that. So now one may think, oh, my life is finished. I'm in jail. No, one can practice Krishna consciousness in jail also. So like that. So yes. and we take the instruction seriously. We take the association of the Vaishnavas, which is available, seriously. And then the opening of the dimensions. So no situation remains a deadlock or checkmate situation. Everything opens up. So seriousness is in our hands. Skill may not be in our hand, but seriousness is in our hands. And that is all what Krishna wants to see. Let's stop here for today. Granth Raj Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Haribo.